Deep beneath the surface of the earth, hidden from the sun and sky, there exists a world unseen by most of humanity. It is a realm sculpted not by hands, but by the patient, relentless work of water on rock over countless eons. Here, time itself seems to slow down, measured in the geological heartbeat of the planet. It is a world of absolute darkness, a blackness so complete it feels tangible, a physical presence that absorbs the most powerful lights, and profound silence, broken only by the rhythmic sound of a diver's own breathing, a constant, intimate reminder of their fragile connection to life. This is a labyrinth of submerged passages, a complex network of tunnels and chambers carved out of ancient limestone over millennia. These underwater caves are some of the last truly unexplored frontiers on our planet, holding geological and biological secrets yet to be discovered. They beckon to a unique and fearless breed of explorer, individuals driven by a desire to chart the unknown. Within these depths lies breathtaking beauty, subterranean cathedrals adorned with formations that defy imagination. But this beauty is guarded by immense danger. Every turn can present a new, life-threatening challenge. Here, the line between discovery and disaster is as thin as the guideline, the diver's single most critical piece of equipment. This simple nylon cord is the only guaranteed path back to the surface. It is the lifeline that leads a diver back through the maze, back to the world of light and air. Losing the line means losing your way, a fatal error in a place with no other landmarks. The reward for accepting such risk is access to unparalleled vistas, and the profound thrill of venturing where no one has gone before, of being the first human eyes to witness a hidden corner of the earth. But the risks are absolute and unforgiving. There is no margin for error, no room for panic. The allure of these hidden chambers is powerful, a siren's call to the curious and the brave, promising sights and experiences found nowhere else on the planet. To answer that call, cave divers train for years, mastering complex equipment where redundancy is paramount. Every critical system has a backup, and a backup for the backup. They spend countless hours steeling their nerves, conditioning their minds to face conditions that would overwhelm the unprepared. They learn to navigate through impossibly tight restrictions, spaces so small they must remove equipment and push it ahead of them, all while in total darkness. They must meticulously control their breathing to conserve precious air, adhering to strict gas management rules like the rule of thirds: 1/3 of the gas supply for the way in, 1/3 for the way out, and 1/3 reserved for emergencies. And they must maintain perfect buoyancy, hovering weightlessly to avoid disturbing the fine, clay-like silt that carpets the floor. A single misplaced fin kick can obliterate visibility in an instant, creating a blinding silt-out that can take hours or even days to clear. Every dive is a calculated risk, a delicate dance with the elements, where preparation and discipline are the only partners. It is a journey into an environment that offers no second chances. It is a pursuit that demands not just physical skill and technical mastery, but an unwavering mental fortitude built on a foundation of humility and respect for the cave. The ability to solve multiple cascading problems in the dark, under pressure, while your life hangs in the balance, requires a calmness that is nothing short of extraordinary. She was one of the most fearless and accomplished cave divers in the world, a woman who felt more at home in the submerged underworld than on dry land. Agnes Milowka had dedicated her life to exploring these secret places, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible and mapping passages that had never seen the light of a human torch. Courage, skill, an insatiable passion for discovery. Intricate networks of Florida, deep, cold chasms of Europe, always returning with new knowledge and breathtaking stories. Her expertise was sought after for expeditions and film projects, including the blockbuster movie Sanctum. But on a summer day in 2011, deep beneath the rugged landscape of South Australia, Agnes Milowka embarked on a dive that would become her last. She entered a passage from which she would never return, leaving the exploration community in a state of shock and profound loss. This is the story of that final, tragic dive. The setting for this tragedy is a place known to divers around the globe simply as Tank Cave. Its name resonates within the tight-knit community of cave explorers, a name synonymous with both breathtaking beauty and extreme, unforgiving challenge. It is a place that demands absolute perfection, where the line between a successful exploration and a life-threatening incident is razor-thin. Located near Mount Gambier in South Australia, it's not just a cave, but a sprawling subterranean maze. This region, known as the Limestone Coast, is a global mecca for cave divers. Its unique karst landscape, formed over millions of years, is riddled with water-filled passages, creating a network of some of the most spectacular and dangerous underwater environments on the planet. Tank Cave is considered the crown jewel of this system, a labyrinth that has drawn the world's best explorers for decades. It is considered one of the longest and most intricate underwater cave systems on Earth, with over 7 kilometers of mapped passages and countless more still waiting to be discovered. But that number, 7 kilometers, fails to capture the true complexity. This isn't a single linear tunnel. It's a three-dimensional web of interconnected conduits, some vast enough to drive a bus through, others so tight they require a diver to remove equipment to pass. Mapping the system is a painstaking process, a slow and methodical crawl into the unknown, with explorers laying down a permanent guideline, meticulously surveying every twist and turn to build a picture of this hidden world. Its name is deceptively simple, derived from the old stock watering tank that once covered its entrance. A humble, almost comically mundane origin for a place of such profound and dangerous beauty. For years, it was just a hole in a farmer's field, a convenient water source, its incredible secrets lying just meters below the surface, completely unknown. Below this unassuming entry point lies a complex network of tunnels, chambers, and claustrophobic restrictions. The descent begins through a narrow shaft, opening up into a world devoid of natural light. From here, the cave branches out in every direction, a disorienting maze for the unprepared. That presents a formidable challenge to even the most experienced divers. The geology of Tank Cave makes it uniquely treacherous. The limestone is soft and fragile. Passages can be incredibly restrictive, forcing divers into contorted positions, their movements limited, their gear scraping against the walls. Every maneuver requires flawless buoyancy control and a calm, focused mind. The floor and walls are coated in a thick layer of fine, dark silt, a sediment so light that the slightest disturbance, a misplaced fin kick, the exhalation of bubbles, can instantly turn crystal-clear water into an impenetrable black fog. This sediment, a mixture of clay and decomposed organic matter, has the consistency of talcum powder. It hangs suspended in the water column, refusing to settle, creating a condition of zero visibility that can persist for hours, even days. This phenomenon, known as a silt-out, is one of a cave diver's greatest fears. It can cause complete disorientation, stripping away a diver's most crucial sense: sight. In an instant, the entire world vanishes. The powerful dive lights become useless, their beams swallowed by the swirling darkness. Panic can set in as the diver is plunged into a sensory deprivation nightmare, alone in the cold and the black, making it impossible to see gauges, equipment, or the guideline that serves as the only lifeline back to the surface, the world above. In a silt-out, a diver must rely solely on tactile sense and unwavering discipline, their hands searching blindly for that thin nylon rope, the one and only connection to a known route out. Losing contact with the line is often a death sentence. For explorers like Agnes Milowka, Tank Cave was an irresistible puzzle. It wasn't the danger that drew her in, but the profound challenge and the promise of discovery. She possessed the rare combination of physical skill, mental fortitude, and an insatiable curiosity required to safely navigate such an environment. She understood the risks intimately and had dedicated her life to mastering the techniques needed to mitigate them. It was a place where a small, unexplored side passage could lead to a massive new section of the cave system, a breakthrough that would add another chapter to the story of this incredible place. This is the siren song of cave exploration, the chance to be the first human being to ever lay eyes on a passage, to push the boundaries of the known world, and to leave a permanent mark on the map for others to follow. On February 27, 2011, Agnes and a dive partner descended into the familiar darkness of Tank Cave. The dive plan was to explore a specific area, a section known for its tight passages and silty conditions. They were both highly experienced, equipped with state-of-the-art rebreathers, and following established protocols. The objective was clear: to survey a known line and potentially investigate promising leads for future exploration, pushing a little further into the unknown as she had done countless times before. The conditions were typical for the system: tight, silty, and demanding. Visibility was good, but the potential for a silt-out was ever present. This was business as usual for Agnes, an environment where she was supremely comfortable, her movements precise and efficient, her mind calm and analytical. But something on this dive would go terribly wrong. A decision to enter a small offshoot tunnel, a passage that was not part of the original dive plan, would change everything. This deviation from the plan, a common practice in exploration when a promising lead appears, is a calculated risk. The explorer weighs the potential for discovery against the immediate environmental threats. A choice made in the spirit of exploration that defined her very being would set in motion a chain of events that would lead to a desperate, silent struggle deep within the earth. Inside this narrow restriction, far from the main guideline, the delicate balance she had mastered throughout her career was irrevocably broken. The fine silt, disturbed in the tight confines, would have quickly and completely erased all visibility. The very passion that drove her to explore the world's darkest corners would ultimately lead her into a passage with no exit. Trapped, disoriented, and with a finite supply of breathing gas, she was faced with the one scenario every cave diver trains for, but prays they never encounter. The cave that had given her so much purpose had become a trap, its silent ancient walls bearing witness to the final moments of one of the world's most gifted explorers. The morning of Sunday, February 27, 2011, dawned cool and clear over Mount Gambier. In this quiet corner of South Australia, the landscape, scarred by ancient volcanoes, hides a secret world beneath its surface. A labyrinth of limestone caves flooded with water of astonishing clarity. For the global cave diving community, this region is a pilgrimage site, and for those who gathered at the entrance to Tank Cave, it was a day for exploration. The mood was one of focused anticipation, a familiar blend of camaraderie and meticulous preparation that precedes any serious cave dive. Among them was Agnes Milowka, a diver whose name was synonymous with pushing the boundaries of underwater exploration. Agnes and her dive partner prepared their gear with the practiced efficiency of seasoned explorers. They were using state-of-the-art closed-circuit rebreathers, or CCRs. These are not your typical scuba tanks. A rebreather is a complex life support system that recycles a diver's exhaled breath. Instead of venting bubbles into the water, it directs the gas into a loop where a chemical scrubber removes the carbon dioxide. Oxygen sensors then analyze the remaining gas, and a computer injects a precise amount of oxygen to maintain a breathable mix. The benefits are transformative for cave exploration. Dives can last for many hours, far beyond the limits of conventional scuba, and critically, they produce almost no bubbles. In caves with ceilings coated in fine, volatile silt, exhaled bubbles can trigger a blinding underwater avalanche. For Agnes, the rebreather was an essential key, unlocking deeper and more remote passages. But this advanced technology demands an equally advanced level of training, discipline, and an intimate understanding of its mechanics. Their plan for the day was ambitious: to descend into Tank Cave and continue exploring a new section, pushing a line into the unknown. As they submerged, the familiar world vanished. The warmth of the sun, the sounds of the surface, the very air itself, all were left behind. They were replaced by the profound, enveloping quiet of the cave and the steady, rhythmic pulse of their own breathing, amplified within their rebreather loops. The water temperature dropped, a constant chill that their dry suits held at bay. Their world shrank to the piercing beams of their dive lights, cutting cones of white through the darkness. Immediately upon entering the overhead environment, they connected with the main guideline, a permanent nylon rope that serves as the cave's primary highway. In cave diving, the line is everything. It is the only guaranteed path back to the surface. Losing the line is the single most dangerous event that can occur. Divers maintain constant contact, either physically or by staying within arm's reach, following it with unwavering discipline. They followed this lifeline for a significant distance, their movements precise and controlled to conserve energy and gas. Their destination was a junction known as the Sea Run, a branch off the main, well-traveled route. This area was known to be a complex maze of smaller tunnels, a place where the cave's geology became more intricate and challenging. It was less traveled, a frontier within a known system. But their objective lay even deeper within this section. The specific target for the day's exploration was a small, unmapped side tunnel, a tight offshoot from a known passage that Agnes had previously identified. This was the very edge of the map. This passage was a major restriction, a section of cave so narrow that a diver cannot swim through with their gear mounted on their back. They must remove their tanks, push them ahead, and squeeze their body through the tightest sections. For many, such tight spots are terrifying dead ends, absolute barriers to exploration. But for Agnes, they were invitations. They were the gateways to Virgin Cave, places no human had ever seen. Her unique skill and slender build made her exceptionally adept at navigating these challenging spaces. The plan was carefully orchestrated, following established protocols. Agnes would be the push diver. She secured a thin, new exploration line from her reel to the permanent guideline, creating a new branch on the cave's map. This new line would be her only connection back to this point. Her partner would not follow her into the restriction. He would remain here, in the larger, safer passage, acting as a safety anchor. His role was to monitor the time, manage his own gas supply, and be ready to provide immediate support should Agnes return with a problem. With her rebreather unclipped and pushed ahead, Agnes began to negotiate the entrance. With her primary light probing the absolute darkness of the new passage, she carefully entered the tight opening, her body contorting to fit the shape of the rock. The reel in her hand paid out the thin white line behind her, a fragile thread connecting her to the known world. Inside, the environment changed instantly. Conditions were immediately more hazardous. This virgin tunnel was coated in a thick, fluffy, dark silt, fine sediment that had settled undisturbed for millennia. This is the cave diver's greatest foe. It has the consistency of talcum powder and hangs in the water with near-neutral buoyancy. The slightest touch can explode it into a blinding cloud. Agnes was a master of buoyancy and trim, moving with minimal contact. But in such a confined space, some disturbance is almost inevitable. A fin kick too close to the floor, an elbow brushing a wall, even the gentle movement of water displaced by her body. Each tiny contact added a small puff of sediment to the water. As she progressed deeper into the restriction, the cumulative effect of these minor disturbances began to grow. Then, it happened. What started as a minor haze in her wake quickly became a thick, soupy fog, a complete and total silt-out. Visibility dropped from several meters to absolute zero in a matter of seconds. Her powerful dive light, once a tool for revealing the cave's beauty, was now useless, its beam scattering back at her as if hitting a solid wall. She was plunged into a tactile, featureless blackness, more absolute than any night on the surface. Her extensive training would have kicked in instantly. Stop, breathe, think, act. The procedure is to halt all movement to avoid worsening the silt out, remain calm, and find the guideline. But while attempting to reverse her path in total darkness, pushing her equipment back through the tight passage, Agnes appears to have lost contact with her guideline. Perhaps the line, which has some natural slack, was pushed into a crevice, or she became disoriented while maneuvering. The exact moment is unknown, but the consequence was catastrophic. Once separated from the guideline, Agnes was truly lost. In the featureless, tactile darkness of a complete silt-out, every direction feels the same. There is no up or down, no left or right. The only sensory input is the cold, confining rock and the thick, soupy water. To be lost in a cave is terrifying. To be lost in a silted-out restriction is one of the most dire situations a diver can face. The psychological pressure in such a situation is immense. The instinct to struggle, to swim frantically in search of the line, is overwhelming but fatal. It only worsens the silt-out and consumes precious gas. The sound of one's own breathing, the gentle hiss of the rebreather, becomes a stark, ticking clock, a reminder of a finite resource in a place where time is the most valuable commodity. Outside, her partner watched as the entrance to the restriction began to bleed a thick cloud of silt. He waited, knowing the protocol. But as the minutes ticked by, far longer than the agreed-upon time, concern turned to dread. Following one of the most rigid safety rules in cave diving, that a second diver should never enter a zero-visibility restriction to attempt a rescue, as it would likely trap them both, he made the agonizing but correct decision to surface and raise the alarm. Meanwhile, trapped inside the passage, Agnes was engaged in a desperate, silent battle for survival. It is believed she attempted to switch to her emergency bailout gas supply, a standard procedure. But performing complex tasks in a tight space, under extreme stress, and in total blackness, is nearly impossible. The window of opportunity for self-rescue, finding the line before disorientation and gas consumption became critical, was closing with every passing second, with every breath. The very walls of the cave she loved to explore, the unknown places she sought with such passion, had become her prison. In the silent, cold depths of Tank Cave, surrounded by the ancient, unforgiving rock, Agnes Milowka had passed the point of no return. On the surface, the initial calm of the day began to fray. When Agnes's dive partner emerged from the water alone, a feeling of deep unease settled over the small group. The group waited, their eyes fixed on the placid surface of the water, praying for the sight of bubbles. As the minutes ticked by, hope began to fade. The call for assistance was made. The cave diving community in Mount Gambier is small, tight-knit, and exceptionally well organized for exactly these kinds of emergencies. The grim reality set in. Given the time that had elapsed, the chances of finding Agnes alive were virtually zero. The mission's objective shifted to bringing her home. The recovery operation began as evening fell. The first team of highly experienced search divers descended into Tank Cave. The mission now entered its most dangerous phase. Visibility was non-existent. The search was conducted entirely by feel. After a tense and difficult search, the diver's hand made contact. It was not the guideline he found, but Agnes. The recovery diver confirmed the discovery and began the delicate and emotionally wrenching process of bringing her back. The news of the discovery sent a shockwave through the global diving community. Agnes Milowka, the vibrant, fearless, and seemingly invincible explorer, was gone. As the initial grief subsided, it was replaced by a collective determination to ensure her legacy would be one of inspiration, not just caution. Agnes was more than just an adventurer. She was a pioneer whose life's work, captured in maps, films, and writings, became a lasting testament to her spirit. The detailed and accurate maps she created remain in use, guiding explorers safely through passages she was the first to chart. She was a role model, particularly for a new generation of female explorers, proving that courage, skill, and determination know no gender. Agnes Milowka lived for discovery, and while her final dive ended in tragedy, her courage continues to fuel the ambitions of those who follow in her wake. To formally honor her immense contributions, the Agnes Milowka Memorial Environmental Science Award was established. This prestigious grant seeks to keep her spirit of discovery alive by supporting meaningful research projects related to the underwater environment. It empowers the next generation of explorers and scientists to undertake ambitious projects, fostering new discoveries in her name. Her story has become a cornerstone of modern diving lore, a solemn, cautionary tale that has contributed to making a dangerous pursuit safer for all who follow. The story of Agnes Milowka is a powerful and poignant narrative that encapsulates the very essence of exploration. It underscores the dual truth that has always defined humanity's greatest adventures. that the pursuit of discovery often walks hand in hand with immense risk. It is a narrative that balances the thrill of discovery with the weight of consequence, leaving us with a profound respect for both the explorers and the formidable environments they dare to enter. In the silent depths of Tank Cave, her spirit remains, a reminder that the pursuit of discovery often walks hand in hand with danger.
Beneath the calm, sun-drenched surface of the Red Sea, nestled along the coast of Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, lies a place of both breathtaking beauty and profound danger. This is Dahab, a former Bedouin fishing village that has transformed into a global hub for diving enthusiasts. Its name in Arabic means gold, a fitting tribute to the gilded sands that meet the brilliant azure waters of the Gulf of Aqaba. The waters here are legendary, teeming with vibrant coral gardens and an astonishing diversity of marine life. For most, this is a paradise. But just a few kilometers north of the town's gentle bustle, the seafloor opens up into a chasm that has become one of diving's most infamous landmarks. It is a geological marvel known as the Blue Hole. A submarine sinkhole, a sheer-walled cavity in the reef that plunges over 300 feet, or 100 meters, straight down into the ocean floor. From above, it appears as a perfect deep blue circle, a stark contrast to the lighter turquoise of the surrounding lagoon. Divers from around the world are drawn to its sapphire depths, mesmerized by the silent, weightless world it offers. They come seeking adventure, to test their limits against one of nature's most alluring and unforgiving challenges. Its reputation is dual-sided, a coin with one face showing unparalleled underwater splendor, and the other a grim reminder of human fragility in the face of the ocean's immense power. Over the years, the Blue Hole has claimed an estimated 200 lives, though the true number is likely higher. These makeshift memorials, etched with names and dates, stand as a somber testament to its perils. It has earned a somber nickname, whispered with a mixture of reverence and fear in dive communities worldwide: the Divers' Cemetery. Our story begins with a sound that is intimately familiar to any diver. It is the rhythmic hiss of a regulator delivering precious air, followed by the slow, deliberate exhale of bubbles rising toward a distant, sunlit surface. At first, the camera shows a world of vibrant color and life. But as the diver sinks deeper, the light begins to change, the brilliant colors of the reef fading into a deep, monochromatic blue. This was the final dive of Yuri Lipski, a 22-year-old Russian-Israeli man with a deep passion for the underwater world. He was a certified advanced open water diver, but like many before him, he was captivated by a challenge that lay far beyond the limits of his training. He had come to Dahab with a singular, ambitious goal in mind: to film his solo descent and passage through the legendary Arch of the Blue Hole. This natural tunnel, whose entrance begins at a staggering depth of 184 feet, connects the sinkhole to the open sea. It is a technical dive, one that requires specialized training, gas mixtures, and equipment that Yuri did not possess. What followed was not a triumphant journey, but a descent into confusion and tragedy. Deep below the surface, Yuri's camera would capture one of the most haunting videos ever recorded. The camera kept rolling as he sank past 90 meters, far deeper than any recreational diver should ever go on compressed air. It documented, in stark first-person reality, the insidious effects of nitrogen narcosis and the final fatal moments of a young man lost to the abyss. This footage, recovered from the seafloor, would forever serve as a stark educational tool and a tragic reminder of the unforgiving nature of the Divers' Cemetery. Yuri Lipski was, by all accounts, a young man captivated by the allure of the underwater world. Born in Odessa, Ukraine, the 22-year-old had traded the familiar landscapes of the city for the boundless blue of the sea. Beneath the waves, he discovered a profound sense of freedom and wonder. It was a silent, weightless kingdom where the pressures of the surface world simply dissolved. For Yuri, this wasn't just an escape, it was a calling. Diving was not just a hobby for him, it was a passion that quickly came to define his life and his ambitions. Every dive was meticulously logged, a testament to his dedication and a map of his journey deeper into the sport. This passion had led him to become a certified diving instructor, allowing him to share his love for the ocean with others. He found joy in introducing newcomers to the vibrant life just below the surface. But Yuri was not content to simply float among the shallow coral gardens. His gaze was always drawn to the deep blue, the mysterious drop-offs that hinted at a more challenging, more profound experience. He quickly progressed through his recreational certifications: open water, advanced, rescue diver, each one taking him a little deeper and pushing his boundaries a little further. But these were stepping stones. The world of technical diving, with its specialized equipment and extended depth limits, was the ultimate goal. Friends described Yuri as confident, perhaps to a fault. He possessed the fearlessness of youth, an unwavering self-assurance that bordered on invincibility. This was coupled with a belief that with enough determination and training, any obstacle could be overcome, any depth could be reached. This ambition is what ultimately drew him to Dahab, Egypt, a place that held the key to one of diving's most formidable and legendary challenges. The small town of Dahab, nestled on the coast of the Sinai Peninsula, is a world away from the bustling tourist hubs of Sharm el-Sheikh. It's a place where the rugged, arid mountains of the desert meet the brilliant turquoise of the Red Sea. It has a laid-back, bohemian atmosphere that has long attracted travelers, adventurers, and divers seeking a more authentic and relaxed experience. Here, time seems to slow down, measured by the rising and setting of the sun over the water. But above all else, Dahab is a mecca for divers. Its shores are lined with dive centers, and the air is filled with the familiar clank of tanks and the hiss of regulators. The Red Sea is renowned for having some of the most spectacular diving on the planet. The water is exceptionally clear, with visibility often exceeding 30 meters, and the conditions are typically calm, making it accessible year-round. Intricate coral reefs form vast underwater cities inhabited by thousands of species of fish, from vibrant clownfish to majestic Napoleon wrasse and elusive moray eels. It's a paradise for underwater photographers and marine life enthusiasts. While the majority of dive operations in Dahab prioritize safety and professionalism, the town's independent spirit also fosters a culture where some divers push the limits, sometimes with a riskier solo approach to the sport. Just a few kilometers north of Dahab lies the most famous and infamous dive site in the region, the Blue Hole. From the air, it appears as a perfect dark blue circle carved into the shallow reef table, a stark anomaly against the lighter turquoise waters. It is a submarine sinkhole, a collapsed cast cave that drops almost vertically to a depth of over 100 meters, or 328 feet. Looking down from the surface, it's like staring into a bottomless blue-black abyss. But the site's most legendary feature is not its depth, but the arch. At a depth of 56 meters, or 184 feet, a massive underwater tunnel cuts through the reef wall. This 26-meter-long passage connects the inside of the Blue Hole to the open sea, its exit framed by the brilliant blue of the outer reef. For many divers, it represents the ultimate test of skill and nerve. But the arch is a deadly siren. Its entrance lies far beyond safe recreational limits for a diver on standard compressed air. At this depth, the immense pressure triggers a severe form of nitrogen narcosis. It's a disorienting, intoxicating effect, often described as the martini effect, where every 10 meters of depth is like drinking one martini on an empty stomach. At the arch, a diver would be experiencing the equivalent of 5 or 6 martinis, impairing judgment, motor skills, and rational thought when they are needed most. This deadly combination of extreme depth, nitrogen narcosis, and the deceptive allure of the arch has claimed the lives of an estimated 130 to 200 divers over the years, earning the Blue Hole its chilling moniker, the Diver's Cemetery. Yuri Lipski knew these stories. He had heard the warnings and read the accounts. He knew the risks. But like so many ambitious divers before him, he was drawn to the challenge, believing he had the skill, the confidence, and the will to succeed where others had failed. He believed he would be different. The primary danger of a dive like Yuri's isn't a monster lurking in the depths, but an invisible, insidious force: pressure. As a diver descends, the surrounding water exerts immense force, compressing the air they breathe. This is where the physics of diving becomes a matter of life and death. The air in a standard scuba tank is about 79% nitrogen. On the surface, it's harmless. But deep underwater, the increased partial pressure transforms this inert gas into a potent narcotic. This phenomenon, known as nitrogen narcosis, is often called the martini effect. For every 10 meters a diver descends, it's like drinking one martini on an empty stomach. At the depths Yuri was targeting, the impairment can be profound, leading to euphoria, impaired judgment, and a dangerous sense of invincibility. Yuri Lipski was a certified open-water scuba instructor, a qualification that speaks to his competence in teaching recreational diving. However, that certification is for guiding and training others within strict recreational limits, typically no deeper than 40 meters or 130 feet. It is a credential that proves mastery of fundamental skills, not a license to explore the extreme frontiers of the underwater world. This distinction is critical. Being an expert in one context does not automatically confer expertise in another, far more demanding one. The arch of the blue hole begins at 56 meters, a depth squarely in the realm of technical diving. This is a discipline that requires extensive specialized training, meticulous planning, and advanced equipment far beyond the scope of recreational scuba. To manage the severe risks of narcosis at such depths, technical divers learn to use specialized gas mixtures like trimix. This blend replaces a significant portion of the intoxicating nitrogen with helium, a gas that doesn't have the same narcotic effect under pressure. This simple change allows a diver to maintain clarity of thought when it matters most. Yuri planned this dive on a single tank of standard compressed air. This decision alone exponentially increased his risk of severe, debilitating narcosis. He was choosing to face a complex technical challenge with the most basic recreational equipment, a gamble against the unyielding laws of physics. Compounding the risk, he chose to dive alone. The buddy system is a cornerstone of scuba safety, providing a crucial layer of redundancy and immediate assistance in an emergency. Going solo removed that critical safety net, leaving him utterly isolated and vulnerable to any problem that might arise. The morning of April 28, 2000, dawned bright and clear over Dahab. The Red Sea was placid, its surface like glass. For Yuri Lipski, it was the day he had been waiting for, the culmination of his ambition. As he made his way to the blue hole that morning, those who saw him noted his calm demeanor. He felt anticipation, not fear. In his mind, this wasn't a reckless act, but a defining moment. He believed this goal would validate his skills and define him as a diver of exceptional ability. He had his helmet-mounted camera ready, not just as a tool, but as a witness. It was there to document the triumph he was so sure would unfold. He took a deep breath, the familiar hiss of his regulator filling the air. He stepped into the calm blue water. The initial moments of Yuri's dive, as captured by his camera, are deceptively calm. The footage shows a controlled descent, his movements measured as he follows the reef wall down into the abyss. The world is bright, colorful, and full of life. As he passes the 30-meter mark, the recreational limit, the light begins to change perceptibly. Colors are absorbed by the water, leaving a world of deepening blues and shadows. For Yuri, this was merely a milestone on his way down, a point on the map to his final destination. At a depth of 56 meters, after just a few minutes of descent, Yuri arrives at the entrance to the arch. This is the moment of truth, the threshold he came to cross. This is his last chance to turn back, to ascend to safety. But the allure of the arch, combined with the powerful, overconfidence-inducing effects of narcosis, is too strong. The gas he is breathing is actively encouraging him to make the wrong choice. He kicks his fins and propels himself forward, crossing the threshold from the sunlit reef into the mouth of the legendary underwater tunnel. The floor of the arch slopes downward, a deceptive ramp that lures him even deeper. He is now well past 60 meters, descending into a place where every meter dramatically increases the danger. In his profoundly narcotic state, Yuri seems to lose his sense of direction and his dive plan. The footage, once steady, becomes more erratic. He is no longer exploring. He is disoriented. Instead of maintaining neutral buoyancy and swimming straight through the 100-foot-long tunnel to the open sea, he appears to be descending further along the sloping floor of the arch. He is no longer in control of his dive profile. He is sinking, and with every passing second, he is moving further from his intended path and closer to the point of no return. Inside the arch, the camera shifts from controlled exploration to growing confusion. Yuri's movements become less purposeful. The camera swings erratically, suggesting disorientation. He seems to search for the exit. Panic sets in, a diver's worst enemy. Adrenaline compounds the narcosis, a deadly cycle. His air consumption skyrockets. Footage shows him suspended in the water, frozen. This is likely the moment he realizes the gravity. Too late. He has lost control of his buoyancy. Gravity, amplified by the immense pressure, takes over, and he begins to sink uncontrollably. At approximately 91 meters, just shy of 300 feet, a final convulsive movement is seen. An uncontrolled spasm, as his body succumbs to pressure and toxic gas. His breathing stops. The rhythmic sound of the regulator falls silent. The camera, still on his helmet, continues its slow descent. It tumbles through the water, the beam cartwheeling through darkness. It finally rests on the sandy seabed at 115 meters, far below the arch he aimed to conquer. The light points upward like a solitary beacon, illuminating the stream of dissipating bubbles. A silent electronic tombstone for Yuri Lipski. The camera keeps rolling for several minutes, until finally, they stop altogether. The tank is empty. The dive was over. 2 days after Yuri's descent, Tariq Omar, a local deep diving expert, prepared specialized equipment for a deep search. At 115 meters, far below the arch, Tariq's light beam caught something. It was the body of a diver. It was Yuri Lipski. He also recovered the camera, a small piece of electronics holding answers. The family, hoping to prevent such a tragedy from happening again, made the difficult decision to release the video. The footage quickly found its way onto the internet. The global diving community watched in stunned silence. Expert divers and instructors began to dissect the footage frame by frame. They used it as a powerful, if gruesome, teaching tool. The video became a mandatory viewing in some technical diving courses, a visceral lesson on the importance of proper training, gas planning, and respecting one's limits. Yuri's story became a somber reminder that the ocean is impartial and unforgiving. The rules of physics are absolute. Yuri's final dive became a grim reminder of how quickly curiosity can turn to tragedy beneath the waves. His story is a permanent inscription in the history of exploration, a final poignant dedication.
The abyss greets you with absolute, suffocating silence. The slow, rhythmic rasp of air drawn from a tank. The steady, muffled thumping of your own heart against your ribs. All around you is a crushing, absolute darkness. It is a blackness so complete that it feels solid, a physical presence pressing in from all sides. Your light, a single fragile beam, cuts through the void, illuminating a swirling galaxy of tiny particles suspended in the water. It is a lonely universe, cold and silent. Down here, hundreds of feet below the sunlit world, you are utterly alone. The weight of the water above is immense, a constant reminder of how far you are from the air, from life, from safety. This is a place not meant for humankind. On January 8, 2005, this was the world of Dave Shaw. He was descending into one of the most dangerous places on Earth, a place known as Bushman's Hole. This was not his first journey into the abyss. Shaw was an expert, a man who understood the risks better than almost anyone. He was a technical diver, a pioneer who pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. He had meticulously planned every second of this dive, calculated every breath, and prepared for every conceivable emergency. But the deep keeps its own secrets and doesn't always adhere to the plans made by men on the surface. Shaw was on a mission, a noble and dangerous quest. He was not exploring for the sake of it. He was not there to set a new record or to claim a prize. Dave Shaw was descending to bring someone home. 10 years prior, another diver, a young man named Dion Dreyer, had vanished into the depths of this same cave. His body was lost to the crushing pressure and the eternal dark. On a previous dive, Shaw had made a startling discovery, stumbling upon Dion's remains by chance. Haunted by the image, he made a promise. He would return. He would recover the body and provide closure for a family that had waited a decade for answers. It was an act of profound courage and compassion. This final descent was the culmination of that promise. But as the sound of his breathing echoed in the deep, something was about to go terribly wrong. The plan, so carefully constructed, would begin to unravel. The darkness he knew so well would turn against him. Deep inside Bushman's Hole, Dave Shaw made his final descent. He was going down to retrieve the lost, but in a cruel twist of fate, he was on a journey from which he would never come back. The cave that had taken one life was about to claim another, binding two divers together forever in its silent, watery grave. To understand the story of Dave Shaw, you must first understand the place that claimed him. It is called Boesman's Gat, or Bushman's Hole, located in the remote northern Cape of South Africa. From the surface, it appears deceptively simple. It looks like a placid, unassuming pond, a tranquil pool of water surrounded by arid farmland. There are no warning signs, no dramatic cliffs to signal the danger that lies beneath. It is a quiet, almost serene spot, but this calm surface masks a terrifying reality. It is merely the entrance, the narrow throat of a geological wonder that plunges vertically into the Earth's crust, a sinkhole of staggering proportions. This is not a pond, it is a portal to the underworld. This is one of the deepest freshwater caves ever discovered. Its known depth exceeds 282 meters, or more than 925 feet. To put that into perspective, imagine a skyscraper the height of the Eiffel Tower submerged entirely underwater. For divers, it represents one of the ultimate challenges, a place often referred to as the Everest of diving. The pressure at the bottom is immense, over 28 times that of the surface. It is enough to crush a military submarine. The water is perpetually cold, hovering at a chilling 16 degrees Celsius, or 61 degrees Fahrenheit, relentlessly sapping a diver's warmth and energy over the long hours required for such a dive. The very act of reaching the bottom is an extreme undertaking, pushing the limits of both human physiology and technology. A diver must carry a complex array of equipment, including multiple gas tanks filled with specialized breathing mixtures. Standard compressed air becomes toxic at these depths, causing a debilitating condition known as nitrogen narcosis, which impairs judgment and motor skills, often described as a feeling of intense drunkenness. To counteract this, divers breathe a precise blend called trimix: helium, oxygen, nitrogen. But even this is a trade-off, as the wrong mixture at the wrong depth can lead to oxygen toxicity, causing violent convulsions that are fatal underwater. The greatest danger, however, is not the descent, but the ascent. A diver cannot simply return to the surface. Ascending too quickly causes these gases to form bubbles in the bloodstream and tissues, a painful and often deadly condition known as decompression sickness, or the bends. For a dive to the bottom of Bushman's Hole, the return journey is a grueling marathon. The descent might take only 15 minutes, but the ascent can require more than 12 hours of slow, staged stops at various depths, a lonely and dangerous vigil in the cold dark. Before Dave Shaw was a name whispered in awe and sorrow within the diving community, he was a man of the skies. Born in Australia, he built a successful and distinguished career as a commercial airline pilot for Cathay Pacific, based in Hong Kong. For years, his life revolved around checklists, flight plans, and the orderly, predictable world of aviation. He was responsible for the lives of hundreds of passengers, a duty he performed with meticulous professionalism and an unwavering focus on safety. His mind was trained to calculate risks, manage complex systems, and remain calm under pressure, skills that defined him both in the cockpit and later in the depths of the earth. Shaw was not a typical adrenaline junkie. Friends and family described him as quiet, humble, and deeply analytical. He was a thinker, a planner, a man who approached challenges with a steady hand and a methodical brain. His passion was not born from a reckless desire to cheat death, but from a deep-seated curiosity to explore places few had ever seen. The world of aviation, while challenging, became routine. The sky, once a frontier, had been mapped and tamed. Shaw, in his late 40s, began to search for a new kind of exploration. He found it in the silent, unexplored world beneath the water. His journey into diving began relatively late in life, but his progression was astonishingly rapid. He was not content with recreational diving. His interest was immediately drawn to the more demanding and dangerous discipline of technical diving. He applied the same rigorous discipline that made him an excellent pilot to his new pursuit. For Shaw, the two worlds were linked by a common thread: the precise management of risk in an environment where a single mistake could be catastrophic. For a diver of Dave Shaw's ambition and skill, all roads eventually led to one place: Bozeman's Ghat, Bushman's Hole. Shaw first visited the site in October 2004. He was not just there to see it, he was there to push the known limits. He aimed to dive deeper on a rebreather than anyone had ever gone before. He descended smoothly, reaching a depth of 270 meters, or 886 feet, a new world record. But it was during this record-setting dive that something completely unexpected happened. As his light scanned the silty floor of the cave, it fell upon a shape that did not belong. There, resting on a ledge in the eternal darkness, was a human body. It was clad in diving gear, lying perfectly preserved in the cold, anoxic water. Shaw knew immediately who it must be. A decade earlier, a young 20-year-old diver named Dion Dreyer had blacked out and disappeared. His body was never found. He had become another ghost of the abyss. The discovery profoundly affected Shaw. He had gone down seeking a record, but had found a lost soul instead. As he began his long 10-hour ascent, his mind was no longer on his record, but on the young man at the bottom. He immediately sought out Dion Dreyer's parents, who happened to be at the dive site that day. He approached them with gentle gravity and told them what he had found. For Theo and Marie Dreyer, the news was a shock. For 10 long years, they had lived in a state of limbo. Shaw's discovery, while painful, offered something they had long given up hope for: the possibility of closure. This encounter solidified the promise Shaw had made to himself in the deep. He told the Dryers that he would try to bring their son home. It was a pledge made without hesitation, but one that carried an almost unimaginable weight. He was volunteering to perform one of the most dangerous underwater recovery operations ever attempted. The promise was made, and now the planning had to begin for a mission many considered impossible. The morning of January 8, 2005, broke clear and still. Final preparations began with solemn purpose. Finally, it was time. Shaw stood at the water's edge, laden with over 200 pounds of equipment. A final look with Don Shirley and the team. A nod, a thumbs up. With a quiet splash, Dave Shaw slipped beneath the surface and disappeared into the dark. As Dave Shaw began his descent, the world of sunlight and air vanished instantly. The plan proceeding exactly as rehearsed. He landed softly. He checked his computer. depth 270 meters. The journey down had taken just under 15 minutes. Everything precisely on schedule. He knelt beside Dion Dreyer's body. But a problem arose almost instantly. As he tried to maneuver the body, a cloud of fine silt erupted. Visibility fell to near zero. The exertion at such a depth was immense. His heart rate climbed, and with it, his production of carbon dioxide. He was likely beginning to experience the early effects of hypercapnia. His judgment, his greatest asset, was beginning to be compromised. It was then that the next, and fatal, complication occurred. The thin, strong line he had brought down became unspooled. In the zero visibility and confined space, the line began to wrap around him. He was becoming entangled. The combination of extreme physical exertion, CO2 buildup, nitrogen narcosis, and the panic of entanglement created a catastrophic cascade of failures. In the footage, his movements become less purposeful, more frantic. The camera continued to record as his movements slowed and then stopped. The light flickered one last time and then went out. Dave Shaw had succumbed to the overwhelming power of the abyss. Up above, the minutes turned into 1 hour. The support divers held their positions, their hope dwindling with each passing moment on their dive computers. Don Shirley, positioned at the deepest support stop, knew something was catastrophically wrong. Shaw, his friend, was not coming back. The silence from the deep was absolute and final. The consensus was that a recovery was simply too dangerous. As the team prepared to depart, a strange and unexpected event occurred. The main ascent line was now taut, as if something heavy was attached to it deep below. As they pulled, a dark shape began to emerge. There, tangled in the cave line, were the bodies of Dave Shaw and Dion Dreyer. The cave, it seemed, had given them back. But with them came a piece of evidence: Dave Shaw's head-mounted camera. Its memory card held the final chapter. The story of Dave Shaw is one of immense courage, profound compassion, and the ultimate sacrifice. He was an explorer in the truest sense of the word, driven not by ego, but by a desire to push boundaries and venture into the unknown. His death was not in vain. In the end, his mission was successful. Dion Dreyer was returned to his family. Dave Shaw was brought home, allowing family and friends to grieve and honor him. The recovered camera footage provided invaluable, heartbreaking lessons, showing how quickly a manageable problem can spiral into catastrophe. Dave's final moments on film informed safety protocols and likely saved lives. Dave died doing what he loved, pushing human endurance. He also died for something greater, to fulfill a promise to a grieving family, an act of profound selflessness. In the silent, crushing depths of Bushman's Hole, Dave Shaw found not just the body he was searching for, but the absolute limit of human endurance.
Beneath the sun-scorched deserts of New Mexico, a hidden world waits in absolute darkness. It is a labyrinth few have ever dared to enter, a place of staggering, alien beauty, and profound, silent danger. This is Lechugila Cave, an underground kingdom stretching for miles beneath the Earth's surface. Its passages twist and turn, opening into chambers the size of cathedrals, adorned with crystals that have grown undisturbed for millennia. It is a place that whispers of untold secrets. A frontier, not on some distant planet, but deep within our own. Here, the rules of the world above do not apply. In 1988, a team of experienced cavers descended into this abyss. They were driven by the spirit of discovery, hoping to map passages no human had ever seen. The cavers were ready for the known dangers, but the Earth holds surprises of its own. But their journey would soon take a terrifying turn. It would become a story not of discovery, but of survival. The cave was about to claim one of its own. The central incident happened in an instant, a moment of lost balance on a narrow, slippery ledge. One caver, moving carefully through a difficult passage, suddenly lost his footing. The ground simply disappeared from under him. He plunged into a black void, falling through the darkness, with nothing to grab onto. The drop was over 80 feet, a height equivalent to an 8-story building. His teammates, positioned just moments ahead and behind him, could only watch in horror, as his headlamp beam vanished into the chasm below. The sound of his fall was swallowed by the immense, echoing silence of the cave. Then, there was nothing. They called out his name into the abyss, their voices absorbed by the cold, damp rock. There was no immediate response. In the crushing darkness, their greatest fears began to surface. Then, a faint sound, a moan from the depths, finally broke the silence. He was alive, but trapped. The group's training kicked in, overriding the initial shock. But the sheer drop made a direct descent impossible without specialized equipment they did not have. They were faced with a gut-wrenching decision. The only hope was to get help from the world above. A journey that would take precious, agonizing hours. Long before it was known as a geological marvel, Lechuguilla was just a small, unremarkable pit in the New Mexico desert. For years miners had dug into its entrance, pulling out bat guano for fertilizer. No one suspected what lay beyond the rubble-choked floor. The wind that blew from its depths was the only clue. In 1986, a small group of explorers from Colorado received permission to dig deeper. For days they chipped away at rock and dirt. Then they broke through. They had unlocked a door sealed for millennia. What they found was not just a new passage but an entirely new dimension of the underground world. Vast chandeliers of gypsum, some over 20 feet long, hang from ceilings like frozen lightning. Fields of aragonite bushes, fine needle-like crystals, sprout from the floor in dense white thickets. But perhaps the most iconic formations are the hydromagnesite balloons. They are so fragile that the slightest touch could shatter them. Unlike most caves, Lechuguilla was formed from the bottom up. Sulfuric acid, rising from deep within the earth, dissolved the limestone, creating its massive passages and chambers. This process left behind the gypsum and other exotic minerals that make the cave so famous. Its passages plunge more than 1,600 feet into the earth, making it one of the deepest known caves in the United States. A journey to the deeper sections is a multi-day endeavor. Explorers must set up camps underground. Some passages are so tight, cavers must exhale completely to squeeze through. This is not a place for the claustrophobic or faint of heart. Still, no amount of preparation removes all risk. The cave is untamable. It always has the final say. Two of the strongest cavers would make the grueling journey back to the surface. They packed light, taking only what was essential. The climb out was a desperate, exhausting ordeal. They climbed ropes dangling in black shafts, muscles burning with effort. They navigated slick, muddy slopes, where a single misstep could mean disaster. There was no room for error. Finally, after more than 10 exhausting hours, a faint glimmer of light, the pale, gray light of the world above. They had reached the entrance. Bursting out of the cave entrance, the two cavers were exhausted and running on pure adrenaline. The alarm had to be sounded. An emergency call was placed. A caver was down, deep inside Lechuguilla. They quickly realized the scale of the problem. This was no ordinary rescue. This was Lechuguilla. Calls went out across the country to the small, elite community of cave rescue experts. They dropped everything and began making their way to New Mexico. As darkness fell on the world above, the first wave of rescuers disappeared into the mouth of the cave, beginning their own long journey into the earth. When they finally arrived at the chasm, the scene was grim. Emily had been lying in the cold for over 24 hours. He immediately went to work. This small, illuminated patch of mud became one of the most remote and bizarre hospital rooms in history. They cleaned Emily's wounds, carefully splinted her leg for the journey ahead, and wrapped her in layers of blankets to fight off the deadly chill of the cave. The first and most critical task was to create solid anchor points for the pulley system. The limestone walls of the chasm were unstable. Once the anchors were set, they began constructing the hauling system, a technique known as a Z-rig, which uses mechanical advantage. Emily was carefully packaged into this device known as a sked. This cocoon would be her world for the next day. With everything in place, the haul began. The stretcher began its slow, careful ascent from the abyss. As the physical rescue unfolded, another critical battle was being fought, the battle for communication. They had to run a telephone line from the surface. When the connection was finally made, it was a moment of huge triumph. For the first time, the rescue leaders could get real-time updates from the accident scene. For over 2 days, more than 100 volunteers worked in the cold, wet, muddy darkness of the cave. Rescuers took turns talking to Emily, keeping her spirits up, and reminding her that she was not alone. The successful 80-foot lift was a major victory, but it was just the beginning. Now began the slow, arduous journey through miles of hostile cave passages. In tight squeezes, the stretcher had to be maneuvered with millimeter precision. The cave fought them for every inch. Finally, after more than 2 days of continuous effort, the lead team saw a change in the darkness. The faint distant glow of daylight. The stretcher was carried out of the mouth of the cave and into the bright, warm New Mexico sun. The rescue was over. A quiet cheer went through the crowd. It was a moment of profound collective relief. Emily Mobley was alive. She was immediately transferred to a waiting ambulance, where she would begin the long road to recovery. The 1988 Lechugilla Cave Rescue became a landmark event in underground exploration. It was the deepest and most technical cave rescue ever successfully completed in the United States at the time. The incredible ingenuity and flawless execution set a new standard for what was possible. These became textbook examples studied by cave rescue organizations around the world. Today, Lechugilla Cave remains one of the planet's most protected and revered natural wonders. Its passages are still being explored, but it is always entered with a deep and profound respect for its power. In the silent depths of the earth, courage, determination, and humanity overcame the impossible. A story of humanity's light shining brightly in the darkest place on earth.
On a warm August evening in 2010, 30-year-old Ben McDaniel descended into one of Florida's most dangerous underwater caves. He slipped beneath the glassy surface, following a narrow guideline into a maze of rock and darkness. Minutes later, the water swallowed the light. He was never seen again. What happened beneath the surface still baffles experts to this day, a place of crystal clarity above and lethal complexity below. By morning, a truck sat unmoved. Inside, a wallet, keys, and phone. Clues that led nowhere, a labyrinth of chambers and choke points, mapped and unmapped. And a question that refuses to surface. This is where our story begins. Vortex Spring, Florida. August 18, 2010. Ben was an experienced diver from Tennessee. After losing his younger brother, he came south seeking peace and a new beginning. He kept meticulous notes, chasing skills, depth, and comfort in the water. His routine became familiar: gear up, drive out, descend. Vortex Spring is a paradox, a swimming hole masking a hidden cave system. Families splash above. Cave divers push limits below. The entrance is guarded, the risks spelled out in stark warnings. Reels, lights, redundancy. The discipline of cave diving. Friends remember someone rebuilding, plotting a path forward in the wake of grief. The sea was therapy, the spring a constant, a date circled in ink, and a road that led him back to Vortex Spring. Near closing, witnesses saw Ben preparing for a dive. Checks complete, gauges green. He knew the routine, the rules, the risks. He descended into the cavern where daylight still reaches. Beyond the warning lies the cave, tight, unforgiving. One fin kick too strong, and the world turns to milk. The line is life. Lose it, and you lose the way out. His truck remained by the water's edge as darkness fell. Closing time passed. Morning came. The truck did not move. Inside, the life he left on pause. Staff called in a search. The cave held its silence. Rescue and recovery divers arrived with reels, stages, and experience. They planned penetrations into every reachable chamber. No movement without redundancy. No assumptions underground. They followed the same line Ben likely took. Even experts can be blinded by a single mistake. Markers pointed home, but no sign of a diver. They found his tanks, but not Ben. Searches mapped the voids. Nothing appeared. They pushed through restrictions most will never attempt. Every shelf, every pocket, every dead end, empty. Hours turned to days. The cave gave nothing back. No trace of Ben was ever found. First theory. He ventured beyond the mapped cave and became trapped. In places where silt erases exits, a body can be hidden for years. Veterans say even seasoned divers misjudge a restriction under stress. Second theory. He staged his death and vanished. A new identity beyond state lines. A story that tempts imagination. But evidence for an escape is thin and contested. Third theory. Something sinister happened topside. Rumors, rivalries, and late-night encounters feed speculation. Investigations found no conclusive proof of foul play. Accident, escape, foul play. Each trail runs cold. The cave answers only the questions we can reach, and some places remain beyond our reach. Years passed. No new evidence surfaced. The spring kept breathing, indifferent. Ben's family held to hope and to questions without answers. Where did he go? Why no remains? What did we miss? Some divers believe unexplored pockets still exist. Investigators reread reports, timelines, statements. Cameras saw little. The dark saw everything. For every answer in cave diving, 10 more questions wait. Absence becomes its own kind of evidence. Over a decade later, still no closure. And a story that refuses to settle. Ben McDaniel's story is a haunting reminder of our need to explore the unknown. Florida holds beauty and danger side by side. Behind the headlines was a son, a brother, a friend. Caves do not forgive, and they do not reveal their secrets easily. We mark boundaries to survive. We cross them to learn. Some mysteries live between those two truths. This is a story without an ending, and a warning written in water. Subscribe for more real-life mysteries, true stories, and unsolved disappearances. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay careful.
Mayday. Mayday. This is Vortex Base. We have a lost diver. Repeat. Lost diver in Chamber 3. The voice crackled through the small receiver, thin and strained against a backdrop of static that sounded like falling rain. It was a voice stripped of all but its essential purpose, a sharp point of human distress piercing the calm of the afternoon. The man on the other end spoke quickly, his words clipped, as if he were trying to outrun the very news he was delivering. Each syllable was heavy with a dread that had been building for hours, a slow-burning fear that had finally erupted into this formal plea for help. A signal sent out from a remote patch of wooded Florida scrubland into the wider world. The radio was small, the voice was sharp. It sounded like a man who had not slept. His name was Ben. He was 31. He liked the cold water deep rock. He was not a reckless thrill-seeker, a meticulous, passionate explorer of the Earth's hidden corners. For Ben, cave diving was a discipline, a form of meditation that demanded total focus. It rewarded him with sights few would ever witness. He had done many dives, logging hundreds of hours in the flooded labyrinths of Florida in Mexico. He knew caves, he knew risk. He had friends who trusted him implicitly, friends who were now standing on the surface, their trust helpless against the unyielding physics of the situation. He double-checked his gear. He planned his gas mix with scientific precision. He always respected the cave. The cave was a sink, part of the vast Floridan aquifer. Thin tunnels, restrictions, and wide cathedral-like rooms called chambers. Light could not get in. Only divers with powerful lamps could see. Ben had driven out that morning with 2 partners. The plan: a reconnaissance into Chamber 3 to survey a newly discovered side passage. Well within his capabilities. Cave diving is like entering another world. a realm governed by its own unforgiving laws. You must plan for every contingency. You must carry your air in redundant tanks on your back, because the surface is not up, but back the way you came. You must carry a primary light on your head, and at least 2 backups. Most importantly, you must carry a line, a simple nylon string, usually white or yellow, tied off securely at the entrance. You unspool it as you go, creating a continuous, tangible path that guarantees you can find your way back out, even in 0 visibility. If you lose the line, you can get lost. Ben tied the line and went in. The transition from the sunlit world to the subterranean one was immediate. The water temperature dropped, and the ambient sounds of the forest gave way to the rhythmic hiss of his regulator and the soft flutter of his own bubbles. He moved slowly, deliberately, small efficient fin movements to avoid silt. He checked air, depth, time. A practiced glance every few minutes. His beam cut a cone of clarity, revealing strange rock, ancient fossils, and the ghostly white of his guideline stretching ahead. He took photos, the alien beauty of the passage. He loved the profound quiet, the feeling of being utterly alone, yet connected to deep time. His friends stayed outside. They watched his rope, the primary safety line slowly unspooling from a large reel. The sky changed. High, thin clouds thickened and darkened, coalescing into a heavy, bruised mass. Rain began, a spatter, then a steady downpour. They did not know how much water would come, or how quickly it would alter the cave's delicate hydrology. Rain percolates rapidly through porous limestone, spiking flow inside a cave. The flow can change direction. It can push a diver, stir silt, hide the line. In minutes, a calm system can become a blind maze. Ben reached a deep room known as Chamber 3, a vast silent space the size of a small church, its ceiling lost in the blackness. He saw it, the small, keyhole-shaped tunnel he had come to explore. He had ample air. He had time. He secured his primary reel and switched to a smaller spool for the push. Then the rope moved. On the surface, the line, paying out steadily, suddenly swung fast and went slack. "Ben, this is surface. We've lost tension." The radio answered with silence. He was 50 minutes into the dive, within plan, but the slack line was a serious anomaly. A standby diver suited up. The stream feeding the sinkhole grew loud and turbulent. A gentle outflow hesitated, then reversed. A powerful brown surge shoved him with shocking force. His light became a diffuse glow in a swirling cloud. He tried to turn back. The current pinned his shoulder. A sharp tear. Panic spiked. He fought to slow his breathing. He fumbled in the dark. Relief. The thin nylon line. But it was snagged on a sharp edge behind him. The current pulling one way, the taut line the other. He was trapped. Time moves fast. Air moves faster. Every diver knows the brutal equation. Finite breaths, specific minutes, changing with depth and exertion. At rest, hours. Fighting a current at 100 feet, air goes ferocious. Rescuers must keep strict limits. Carry extra tanks for themselves and to share if they find him. They watched gauges like hawks. They raced 3 clocks. Ben's dwindling air, their own, and the storm. Gear bought minutes, not miracles. The cave narrowed into a jet. Ben's line vanished around a corner. A beam found a low-roof alcove, just enough shelter. Signs, a small knife clipped to rock, a spare mask, a lone fin. He had been here, shedding non-essentials, squeezing on, or preparing to wait. Hope jolted the team. He was moving, he was thinking, he was fighting. Just beyond, a dam of rock, mud, and branches. Water knifed through tiny gaps. They shoved with shoulders and hands. Cold seeped in. A hand over top hit solid roof. The passage was completely choked. They anchored fresh lines into the wall and planned another way. At one point, deep into the third day of the operation, two rescuers working to clear the debris dam heard a faint tapping. A metallic sound, rhythmic and deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. Not random shifting rock. A signal. A human trying to be found. They held their breath and listened. It came from the left wall. They aimed their brightest beams, swam into a narrow, bypassed side tunnel. They emerged into a small air pocket, a dome no larger than a closet. A diver huddled on a ledge above the water, exhausted and hypothermic but alive. Trapped nearly 72 hours. Main tanks gone, down to a tiny emergency bottle. Last lamp dead. He stared wide-eyed. They brought him out, slowly. Outside, in daylight, he hugged them and wept. He'd been on a separate solo dive when the flood pulse hit. He thought he'd die in the dark. He thanked them over and over. The team did not stop. A brief, muted celebration, then back in. The debris dam again, now with tools, pry bars and lift bags. A log shifted, a small opening. Beyond, calmer water. The guideline, miraculously intact, led down a sloping passage. His light fell on something on the floor. Ben's regulator, tucked under a rocky shelf as if placed there. The discovery of the regulator was a deeply ominous sign. Nearby, Ben's helmet, camera still attached, upright on the sand, almost placed. The rescuer sealed them like sacred relics, knowing what they meant. A diver does not abandon his primary life support and his helmet. On the surface, they pushed a small ROV past the bend, probing a wound with a robotic finger. Grainy images fed to a monitor. The camera showed a tight passage, the white line, rippled sand. It rounded a corner and steadied. A dark shape. A face still, like a man who had closed his eyes to sleep. The operator recoiled. A gasp rippled through the room. The rescuers faced the final truth. The search was over. It had become a recovery. News reached his family quietly, away from cameras. A small room. Photos on a table. Ben smiling on a boat, in his gear, with his dog. A note on the wall. Love, Ben. A thumb traced cave lines. They had listened to radio crackle for days, slept poorly on hard chairs. Their world stopped with the grainy image, a blurry frame no one would forget. Days passed. News spread. Brief reports, simplified headlines. A mystery, a tragic accident. Why so deep? Why the unknown passage? Why not anticipate rain? The lead rescuer pushed back at easy blame. Ben loved caves, knew the danger. Sudden, violent current can surprise the most prepared. Good gear, good procedure. Nature is stronger. The recovery took 2 more days. Technically difficult, emotionally draining. They treated him like a fallen comrade. A silent guard formed as he was carried from the water. Small offerings appeared. A wooden cross tied to a tree. Names spoken quietly past yellow tape. The sheriff closed the site. People came. Flowers. Handwritten notes. Little mementos at the rope. The shows told it with shaky pictures. Flashing lights, grim faces, wetsuits on branches, rows of tanks, coils of rope. Each object a silent testament. It became a case study. Rules reinforced. In caves, there's no vertical escape. The way out is long and dark. Lose a guideline, stop, secure, deploy a backup to search. Low on planned air, turn back, no matter how close the discovery. And above all, Respect the weather. Rain can turn calm beauty into a deadly trap with astonishing speed. Yet the lessons from Ben's death were more than rules. They were about people, about the impulse that draws someone into the dark. He loved the quiet, the sculpted rock, the piercing cold, the way a small light reveals unseen beauty. He loved the intense challenge, threading passages few would dare. The risk wasn't the point, it was the price of admission. Rescuers debriefed for hours. They tweaked kits, stronger, abrasion-resistant lines, extra high-capacity batteries. They spoke about hope, fuel for the exhausted, and its balance with clear-eyed risk. They taught students to watch the sky and the radar, showed how easily a line can snag on a sharp edge. At a quiet memorial, they told stories, laughed at a clumsy moment, cried at his generosity, and said he'd like the cave to remain secret. They tied a special knot in his memory. The cave sits under low grass and whispering pines, clear water in dry months, a rushing giant after rain. The rock keeps its shape. It does not judge, it waits. In the end, Ben's story reminds us, the dark has rules and beauty. People will keep going in, carrying lines, lights, and hope. They'll find new corners and teach hard-won lessons. A single weathered wooden cross, tied with white nylon, marks what the earth remembers.